Hello guys, welcome to our video. Today with Emilia from Primer, we're gonna cover all the problems that Web2App funnels have with the payments and how to solve them with payment orchestrations. My name is Igor, I'm founder of Web2Wave. We are the #1 platform for building Web2App funnels for mobile applications and other subscription services. With us, you can easily create your quiz funnel, integrate it with payment systems, analytics systems, run A/B tests, email campaigns, and integrate it into mobile applications. And we have a beautiful integration with Primer. And today we will talk about why you should use Primer.
Hi, Igor, and thank you so much for having me on this podcast. My name is Emilia. I'm a sales and strategy lead here at Primer. We're quite the experts in this field and have grown quite a lot of brands with us. So Primer, just quite briefly, we're a unified payments infrastructure. We're one of the leading orchestrators in the space. Our aim is to help different types of users, regardless of their technical ability, to use one unified platform, essentially a technical infrastructure layer that helps them accept, optimize, and better manage their payments.
Most of Web2App funnels today, including our clients, they run payments using Stripe. It's pretty easy to set up. You can really set up your first account in 5 minutes and start accepting payments. But there are a lot of cases when you can have a lot of problems with Stripe account. And today we'll cover the main 5 problems that are common with Stripe and how payment orchestration can solve all of these problems. So the first problem with Stripe account is vendor lock-in. There is a thing called payment token. This is basically the token that you use to charge the user card. Stripe payment tokens are stored there, meaning that if anything happens with your Stripe account, in this case, you will lose access to all of these payment tokens and will not be able to continue charging these users with other payment systems. The second problem is the single point of failure. Stripe is the biggest player on the market. 1 week ago, AWS services were down and Stripe was down during this period too. So all the projects who dependent on Stripe were losing revenue. And there is no simple way you can switch from Stripe to other payment solutions. Third problem, and this is the main problem that you may have with Stripe, are chargebacks. So chargebacks is a situation when a user goes to their bank account and claiming, I did not make this transaction. With recurring subscriptions, it happens a lot of time. People, when they subscribe on the funnel, sometimes they don't understand that they are subscribing, so they will be charged in 1 month or 3 months, in 1 year, one more time. So when they see the additional charges on their bank account, they may be not happy. They go to their bank account claiming, I did not make this purchase. And then bank starts a process that will result in a dispute that will happen in your Stripe account. And if your dispute rate will be too high, usually it's 0.5%, which is not that big number. And a lot of projects with recurring subscriptions quickly reach this threshold. Then your Stripe account can be blocked and you will lose all of your existing subscriptions, all the revenue that you could get after the account blockage. And there is no way to open a new account for this company. So you will need to create a new entity and create a new Stripe account, which can ruin your business basically. So there are ways how you can fight these chargebacks. There are tools like chargeback prevention tools, and Web2Wave has integrations with them, but it's a big risk. If your Stripe account will be blocked because of chargebacks, then your business will stop completely. Another problem is no retry fallbacks or cascading logic, meaning if for some reason a bank will decline transaction of the user, there is no way to try another payment system. It happens a lot, especially with new businesses. And With Stripe, you don't have any instruments to overcome this issue, but payment orchestration in Primer allows to help with this problem. But the final problem is that the world is different, and payment systems across all of the world are different too. In a lot of countries in Europe, in Brazil, in Asia, there are a lot of local payment methods that Stripe does not support. And for these cases, you have to have local payment systems that specializes in this market. It's pretty hard to do all the custom logic, like, hey, if this user from Brazil, then use this payment system. But with payment orchestration, you can easily do that with one integration, and you can set up this logic with the Primer workflows pretty easy. So the solution to all of these problems is using Primer as the payment orchestration tool. And Emilia, please show us how it works.
Thanks so much, Igor. Very comprehensive. What I'll do now is give you a flavor of how Primer works and what types of use case or problems we help solve here. Now, you've touched on a few really, really important points, and one of them is tokenization. When a customer starts on Stripe or any other processor in that respect, essentially what they do is they tokenize their card details on a processor level, meaning that when a customer clicks pay and those card details get stored, they get stored on Stripe or any other processor if there is one processor. If something does go wrong, those card details will be held on the processor side, and there'll be no other way of processing those payments without having a redundancy method. So say, for example, something went wrong and your account gets blocked, or there is a roll in reserve or a freeze on your account. Essentially, you can't trade. And if you can't trade, you can't take the money, right? And if you've got subscriptions going and if you have recurring payments coming out, that means you cannot service those clients. Now, if you then decide to open another account with another processor, what will happen is you'll essentially need to export those existing clients and somehow move them onto the new platform. And that can take time. It can be effectively quite inefficient as well. The type of problem that Primer helps solve is we give you a fully agnostic, fully decoupled token vault, which means when your customer hits pay, the tokens are stored on the Primer side. So if something does happen with your processor, your customers are securely stored on Primer, and you can essentially plug another processor, granted you have an agreement with them, and continue processing those exact same clients the way you would have had nothing happened. Now, so what are the benefits? The benefits is insurance. Those tokens are fully decoupled and they're fully universal, meaning they can work across any processor that Primer supports. Secondly, redundancy. You always have a backup plan and you can always continue business as usual, regardless of what happens with one processor or the other. And third, it really takes a few clicks to switch the routing logic and actually just transfer your payments in real time. A lot of clients come to us as well asking, why would I need multiple processors? And Igor touched on this quite beautifully earlier. I'd like to add just a few more layers on top. So multi-processing makes sense once you start growing and once you start hitting global volumes. And there are different reasons for that. Some processes can be really, really expensive, especially if it's really easy to get started with them. You're probably paying the premium for that. So once you get to certain levels, it does make sense to look at different processes and start comparing their pricing. And the second point, local acquiring, especially if you're global. So if you're expanding into LATAM or particular countries in Europe, having local acquiring can increase your authorization rate and decrease your cost. So that's another reason why you might want to go multi-processor.
Yeah, I will add here about the price of the acquiring services. So Stripe is not the cheapest one. Like even if you see that their price is 2.9% plus 30 cents, but when, for instance, you have a legal entity in Europe and you charge users in the United States, then you will have to pay additional 1% for the international cards, then additional persons for currency conversions. And you may end up getting to like 8-9% with Stripe. And when you go bigger, you can optimize these commissions with other payment solutions, and can help to increase your profits.
And you're absolutely right on this one. And again, obviously, if your margins are healthy, that's maybe not a massive issue for you. But if you're charging £1 or $1 or €1 per trial, it does erode your margins eventually. So it's worth keeping in mind, especially as your business grows. I will now show you how it all looks in action. So essentially, Primer is, as I mentioned before, is your tech layer. So it's a unified payment infrastructure that gives you different tools to better manage your payments. Orchestration is one of the use cases that we solve for, but we have a lot of different capabilities. And one thing that makes it super easy for anyone to manage their payments is this integrations marketplace. So think of it as an app store, but for payments integrations. If tomorrow you're expanding into LATAM and you might want to add Decoupled, you would simply come onto Primer. Granted, you have an agreement with them already, click connect, add your credentials that you can find on the Decoupled dashboard, and essentially click connect. So that's your whole entire integration just done in a few clicks. Anyone, regardless of their technical ability, can simply just add integrations and start managing them. So that's one thing. When we spoke about the token vault, the beauty of Primer as well is that we abstract the checkout. So our checkout is completely customizable and it sits on top of different providers. If you were managing previously the Stripe checkout, if you were to add additional processes, you'd have to manage separate checkouts. With Primer, we collapse all of that into one. So instead of having to manage different types of checkouts with different types of fields, you're now essentially managing one single checkout that can be customized and stylized to suit your brand identity. You can also set up different types of rules for the checkout to ensure that it allows that dynamic presentment to different types of customers in different markets. And on top of that, as I mentioned earlier, this also gives you that central vault capability where your customer tokens are stored on the Primer side securely and in a compliant way. And then I'm sure you're probably wondering, well, how does the orchestration work? Now, this is the kind of the heart and the brain of Primer, and this really allows our customers to really own their integration workflows or their routing logic per se. So if I was to build one from scratch, and we can do that in real time, you'll see how easy it is to get a payment created and authorized. We build the checkout, and when the client hits pay, it triggers an action on Primer, and that Primer would be payment created. Now, if we want to use orchestration to authorize this payment, all we'd have to do is enable a few conditions. Now, what we might want to do now is enable fallbacks. Some people call them cascades, some people call them routing. All of these terms are interchangeable and they essentially mean the same thing. And that is, if you're sending your payment to your first processor, let it be Stripe. If this payment fails and it's a soft decline, meaning things like timeout, error, do not honor, anything generic, we can then send this same transaction within a few milliseconds to another processor. Let that be maybe a Primer test processor for this exercise. You can choose the MID or merchant ID, and that's essentially your routing done. Just in a few clicks, we've set the logic up for routing per country. We've also created the routing logic here with cascades. If tomorrow you go into our data insights, you realize that one process is performing better than the other one. You can simply come here. Again, no coding required. You swap out this account for another one and off you go. Again, the other thing you might want to do is load balance. Say, for example, you've just signed an agreement with a new processor. They're a lot cheaper, but you're not confident about their performance levels. You can simply come in here and you can maybe say, do you know what? I do trust Stripe. I've had my account for a long time. So I'm going to send 90% or like 80% to Stripe. and only 20% to new processor until I'm confident that the performance is up to my standard. And again, you can set different types of conditions by payment method, by country, by MIT, so merchant-initiated transactions or customer-initiated transactions. It gives you full flexibility to adjust your payment strategy in real time and ultimately look at the data, maybe run A/B tests, see what works, what doesn't work, come back and adjust these workflows. Again, one other thing I will touch on, not so important for the US, but for Europe, for example, we have a fully decoupled 3DS, which means, for those who don't know, it's a mandated or mandatory requirement in Europe. So every transaction of a certain amount has to trigger a challenge that a customer needs to go through. So that means the liability then shifts from the issuer onto the customer. For any transaction that requires 3DS, if the first transaction was to be declined, you would typically need to run 3DS twice. Because our 3DS is completely decoupled, this means the transaction will only require 3DS once. And if the first processor declines that payment, it automatically, that challenge and data that we get from that challenge automatically gets sent to the second processor. So no friction in the customer experience. You don't have to pay for 3DS twice. Everyone wins, and it just makes the whole experience a lot more simpler. And again, just a few things to touch on. Again, orchestration is one part of what we do. We also give you with a lot of different types of tools to help you better understand your data. We give you proactive alerting capabilities that flag anything that goes wrong across your payment stack, as well as tools like reconciliation.
When the clients integrate Primer compared to Stripe, by how many % they can increase their revenue?
So on average, between 9 to 20% increase through fallbacks. And again, this depends on the types of decline reasons, the types of process that clients use, but that's what we see on average.
When you have an increase of 12% or 10 or 15, it is significant when you have a big revenue, but for smaller companies that generate 10, maybe 20K per month, why they should start using Primer?
Really good question. Again, I always say that there is a place and time for Primer, but you always have to think about future-proofing a stack, right? So payments are not sexy. And although they might not seem like the most exciting thing to think about, this is one of the most crucial parts of your business. Because if you can't take money, then you don't have a business, right? So again, there are 3 ways I would look at this. First of all, is it worth spending your developer time, and that's an actual person's salary, on building out, fine-tuning all of these integrations? If there are tools that exist that can essentially solve that problem and allow non-technical users to collaborate in the same space. So again, you'd be probably spending way less on Primer than you'd be spending on a developer. So that's an ROI there. So the second point would be around redundancy or the insurance policy, right? What happens, again, I hate throwing what ifs around, but again, what if your processor declines? What if their underlying bank changes the rules? What if for some strange reason your chargebacks go through the roof and they put hold or they block your account? Again, you're instantly losing those clients and you're unable to process. With us, we take all of that. We provide you with redundancies and you can store your clients, and rest assured that your tokens are stored in a compliant way. And the third, again, it's optimization, right? So we have clients who essentially pay less Primer per month than what they generate in fallbacks alone. So it's all those marginal gains, whether you're using things like network tokenization, whether you're leveraging fallbacks, whether you're actually using the data that you're getting on Primer and optimizing your routing logic. So it's all of these little marginal gains that actually make our platform incredibly valuable. And to quote our founder and CEO, Gabriel, he strongly believes that Primer payment is worth so much more than an ordinary payment just because of the value that we provide to our customers.
That's why we chose Primer over all other payment orchestration tools that exist on the market. We did our research and we see that a lot of Web2App projects are already using Primer. That's why we decided to work with you. I will highlight here the insurance part of using Primer. We had clients who were pretty small and they were in situation when they were running ads. Their revenue was like 10, 20K per month. But then they had a problem with the Facebook account. So they did not run ads for some time. And during this period, their number of payments went down, but the chargebacks that they were receiving stayed the same. So the percentage of the payments that were refunded went up and their account was blocked because of that. So in this case, if they would have a primary account and save payment tokens, they would continue using these payment tokens to continue charging the users using other payment systems. But we had to recover them from scratch and open a new entity for them.
We're experts in our fields. Everyone at Primer comes with a degree of payment background. So our company was founded by former PayPal/Braintree leaders. The ethos of our company is to help our clients solve their most pressing payment problems, and that is why we exist. We're super excited about our partnership with you. I believe that it's going to unlock a lot of opportunities for your clients and help us collectively grow this community of successful app businesses.
Yeah, and about our partnership, technological and business partnership with Primer. So we already have integration with Primer. When you come to Web2Wave, you can create your funnel with no code and you don't need to build integration with Primer. We can transfer your existing subscriptions from Stripe to Primer, and you can continue charging users with Stripe or any other payment system. You can set up custom billing logic and retries using Primer workflows. We have integrated chargeback prevention tool that will refund the users once they request their chargeback from bank, and it will not affect the reputation of your Stripe account. Then all these small details like making refunds, creating PDF invoices for your customers, and providing them with the customer portals, the thing that you had in Stripe, we handle everything. And so you don't need to code any of that. And all of that stuff is set up by Web2Wave. So you don't need to go manually to your primary account and connect all the payment systems. We help you with that. And you have full access to your primary account. So if for some reason you would like to continue using your primary account out of Web2Wave, you have an access to it and you continue using it. You can open Primer account directly with Web2Wave. So you don't need to go to Primer and sign a contract with them. We have an official partnership with Primer. You go to Web2Wave, we create funnel for you, we create Primer account for you, and we help you set everything up, and we will make you introductions to all the PSPs that will be suitable for your use case. It depends on what your payment processing volume is, where your legal entities, where your clients are, what is your payment niche. And depending on that, we will pick together with Emilia and Primer, we'll pick the payment system that will work for you and make an introduction and help you sign the contract with these PSPs and then connect them to Primer and through Primer to Web2Wave. Emilia, thank you so much. And I hope that it was helpful. If you have any questions, send them to us, write them in the comments to this video, or just book a demo, or you can go to web2wave.com, create an account, and message to the chat on the website.
Igor, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.